tells you what I might need to know. Check the place out.
What's up, y'all? We got a ton of stuff on the agenda today. We're gonna talk conspiracy theories, we're gonna talk our favorite lines from the episode, and of course, Ray being shot, not once, but twice, with a shotgun at point blank range.
Yes, and we're trying to decide whether or not we think he's actually dead.
I don't think he's dead.
I hope he's dead.
I hope he's dead too.
Yeah.
Why?
I hope he's dead partially because, well, I'm not his biggest fan. But the actor's fan, not the character's fan.
I'm hoping that Ray is dead, and here's why. True Detective is one of those shows that where we sit around, we wonder how self-aware it is. It gets made fun of a lot, and it's kind of become a sort of parody of itself over the years. It's still a great show, don't get me wrong, but a lot of questions come of whether or not the show can laugh at itself. If they were to kill off the main character after the second episode, that tells me that the show is really self-aware, and especially after all of one of its biggest marketing tools, one of its biggest hype builders, is who is going to play True Detective. If they kill off Colin Farrell, which was an A-list score for them, that shows me the show is self-aware and is willing to take some really interesting risks. What do you think?
I mean, that's definitely true, and on top of that, he was the most likable character for a lot of people. Arguably, most people have said that they loved his performance, they loved his lines. I mean, he delivered some of my favorite lines for this episode, whereas I thought a lot of the other characters' lines were kind of like, meh, not so great.
Ray's not only the main character, he's the one who gets the best stuff in this show, and I'm more interested to see the show pivot towards some of these other characters that we don't know as much about, like a Paul or an Annie. This all being said, let's talk about your conspiracy theory as to what really happened in that apartment.
Yes, I feel like there's a possibility that Ray could still be alive. This whole shooting scene could have been a masquerade to conceal the fact that he is actually the person pulling the strings. So he killed Casper, probably, or at least had it set up. And it all kind of goes back to that point in time where his wife was raped and he committed that first crime for Frank. That might have turned him to the dark side.
Yeah, Ray obviously spends a lot of time in this episode, you kind of talking about the end for him personally. And to tie to your theory, what a better way to set off a course of emotions than, you know, I'm going to burn this whole city down.
Yes, and his wife even said to him, like, you're a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's a bad guy, he's the baddest guy, badder than Frank.
Yeah, and so real quick, you'll be like, oh, what? He got shot twice with a shotgun at point blank range. Here's where I tell you that shotguns don't necessarily always have to have bullets. Rock salt is a potential option here. As we saw in Kill Bill Volume 2, when Uma Thurman's character gets shot twice with a shotgun at point blank range. So keep that in mind, that Ray might be the one pulling the strings to fake his death. And this would be a little bit better than if the show were to just bring him back if he suffers like a life-threatening injury and then he solves the True Detective mystery from the bed of a hospital.
Yeah, that would be stupid.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that. So we're holding out for either A, Ray's dead, and kudos to the directors for trying something different in that regard, or B, Ray's the one pulling all the strings and stage this death.
Yes.
Baller conspiracy theory. Moving on, we want to talk about the opening monologue.
Wake up.
Where Vince Vaughn, you know, in the first 2 minutes, really tries to seem like they're making Vince Vaughn work in this mobster gangster role as Frank.
Yeah, I felt like this opening monologue, which was like 5 or 6 minutes long, something like that. It was too long, in my opinion. He was supposed to show off his acting chops for the first time, and we were looking forward to it too. It was really, really sad, but I also wasn't sad watching him say those things. Like, I didn't believe him at all.
Yeah, you asked me before we came on the air, did you feel it? Like, did you feel sad? Did you feel sorry for him? And it is a brutally written monologue and piece of dialogue where you want to sit there and be like, oh my God, I feel so bad for this character. But for some reason, the lines just don't match up with the way that they're delivered. And I find that with a number of, not just Frank's lines, but kind of lines scattered throughout the episode. It just doesn't seem like the writing matches the delivery, which is stark contrast to season 1 when, Matthew McConaughey just seemed to rattle off you know, those existential line after line.
I thought I was mainlining the secret truth of the universe.
And you bought it. It might have sounded ridiculous at times, but you bought it.
Yeah, and their partnership was so perfect. Their partnership was bonded through their dialogue. And now during this season, we had Ray and we had Annie, and their dialogue just wasn't really meshing at all.
Yeah,
for me.
I would agree with that. I think that scene in the car gave us some of the best lines of the episode.
Tell me, how compromised are you?
But it still doesn't feel like a fit. Last week we introduced our favorite running segment of who is the truest detective. Remember, this isn't like who the best detective is, because ironically there really wasn't a whole lot of good detective work done unless your name was Frank.
Yeah, Frank.
Who's the bad guy? So, for last week's episode, we nominated Ray as the truest detective, just fitting the mold of what the true detective is. But this week, you have a different nomination.
Yeah, if Ray had stayed alive, he might have been again. But Frank actually topped the ranking for us because he's the only character who did real detective work and found something for this crime that we're trying to work through as an audience. So well done, Frank.
Yeah, Frank actually has a lead, has a tip, investigates it, gets an address of where the murder might have gone down, gives it to Ray to track it down. Unfortunately, that did lead to Ray getting a couple bullets put into him, but nevertheless, good detective work from Frank.
We should point out too, though, that Frank has the most writing on this, literally money-wise.
Yeah,
Because Casper, who died, had a bunch of his money.
pretty much all of it.
Yeah, he's broke. He's
Yeah.
a broke mobster.
Which is the scariest kind of mobster.
He's really bad at his mobstering.
Nobody's good at anything they do in this episode, in this show, as we're learning quickly.
Yeah, so he becomes the best detective because it's his money and he wants it back, basically.
It's crazy the lengths that mobsters will go, obviously, to make sure that their mobstering is done the right way. We were actually just talking about off camera how we always forget to talk about Paul. So let's talk about Paul.
Yes, we do need to talk about Paul because right now his character is still shrouded in mystery. Like, we have no idea what's going on. So we learned last episode that Paul served in the military in some form, maybe Iraq or Afghanistan, something like that. We also know that he was a member of this thing called the Black Mountain Security.
This Black Mountain Security, they did things bad.
I don't talk about the desert.
Which could potentially be a play on some sort of like private security contracting company where he could have done some really shady stuff that could have psychologically messed him up.
Yeah, it was weird how that line was subtle and not so subtle.
Yeah.
This kind of thrown about, it says something about Black Mountain Security here, and then he immediately shuts it down. What happens, and then don't ask me about what happened in the desert.
Yes.
Right off the bat. We also learned that what we thought was Paul's ED problem in the last episode actually might turn out that he is gay and is trying to hide that from all of his other coworkers. But like you said,
Or even his mom.
his mom too. There's some weird Oedipal issues going on there too. His mom seemed really interested in him.
Oh, she is far too interested in his sexual like prowess.
Ranking. So let's rank the parenting issues here right now.
God.
I'm gonna go number one with Ray and his son and that relationship. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Ray's relationship with his son, he's by far the most explosive.
Sure.
Probably damaging. And then definitely Paul's, I would say. I'm gonna put it before Annie's because that just seems so messed up to me.
Yeah, and Annie's dad may or may not be responsible for the deaths of people due to the cult that they're being in. So, and he's third on our list. So that should tell you everything you need to know about the parenting on True Detective. That wraps it down for us for this week. Stay with us next week. Monday afternoon we'll be releasing, and hopefully we'll know a little bit more about what happened to Ray. What does that mean for Frank, and is Ray behind it all? So stay with us.